welcome to part 2 of this video on positive intelligence. Now, if you missed part 1, click up there where you can discover what your inner saboteurs are and what things get in the way of you from living a fulfilled and optimal life. In this video, I want to talk more about how we can use more of our Thrive brain, the aspects of our brain linked to our prefrontal cortex that allow us to make smarter, wiser choices and not be succumbed to the previous negative patterns that we've been falling for all of this time. And in this video, I want to touch upon 5 things that you can develop and foster within you that will not only help you to live a life that's more meaningful to you, but will also help you to counteract any previous negative pattern that you normally experience. I'm Desh, I'm a qualified counsellor, and it is my mission to support you in your own mental health journey by increasing your self-awareness. And the way I want to increase your self-awareness in this video is by touching upon 5 things you need to know and need to consider that is going to help you to counteract any negative thoughts, criticisms, feelings you have that normally get in the way of you making a smarter, wiser choice, whether it's for your business, your relationships, or your personal growth. And by tapping into these 5 areas, you'll experience life on a different level. Not from the survive place that you've been to before, and you can click on the previous video to watch that one. I'm talking about more of a thrive place. So instead of just getting by and dealing with stress, I'm talking about being able to observe all of this from a separate place. You are the observer of the stress rather than the participant in it. And you can separate yourself from the stress you experience and instead live a life where you have more control, more autonomy, and more independence from the feelings you usually experience. The first area I want to talk about is empathy, to empathize. This is, in my opinion, the most underrated skill that human beings have, is the ability to empathize. This essentially means putting your own thoughts and judgments and criticisms to one side and just focusing on what's happening for the other person. You can also use empathy for yourself. And this looks like using self-compassion. So when you are showing empathy for yourself, instead of judging yourself for making a mistake, instead of criticizing yourself for not doing good enough or not feeling you're good enough, you're simply showing yourself compassion. You're saying it's okay to be where you are. You're meant to be where you are. There is no hatred, there is no criticism, there's no judgment, there's no bias, nothing. It is just simply an acceptance of where you are and showing yourself that it's okay. You are not less than or unworthy just because you made a mistake. Usually that voice in our head that kind of says, oh, why did you do that? You're such an idiot. You shouldn't have done that. Or maybe we feel that people are judging us and we always take it personally. We feel it's a reflection of who we are on our own self-worth, and it's just simply not the case. This is where the self-compassion comes in. You have to develop that. This isn't, I'm saying, show yourself compassion as if it's an easy thing. It's really not. If you spent your whole life being judged by others and you've internalized that and inherited that, and you end up criticizing yourself and judging yourself and holding yourself to a particular standard, the problem is that self-compassion is like a whole nother language that you're not used to. You'll probably even think it's a waste of time because the voice in your head that's judging you and criticizing you is saying, don't be kind to yourself. You need me. You need me to stay sharp. And the fact is, it's not true. So being able to sit with the discomfort without listening or giving in to the thoughts or criticism that you have for yourself, and instead showing yourself compassion by giving yourself more space, doing things that you enjoy, despite any mistakes you think you've made or what you think you're worth. This is what's going to cultivate empathy for the self. And once you develop empathy for yourself, it will be much easier to show empathy for others. Because when you recognize your own shortcomings, when you recognize any failures or mistakes you've made and appreciate you for who you are regardless of those failures, you will be able to appreciate others despite the fact that they may have betrayed you, despite the fact that they may have made mistakes or you trusted them and they didn't deliver. You'll be able to see through that and just use empathy to say, you're a human being, It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay. And as a result of that, you're not going to hold any grudges. You're not going to be poisoned by the negative feelings that are just going to fester and build up and the stress and anxiety that comes with that. You'll be able to let that go. Because while on some aspect you're feeling this, you'll be able, with enough practice, to separate yourself from the emotion you experience. So you're experiencing the emotion, but you're above it. This is essentially what meditation aims to do. This is what meditation does. When you meditate long enough, you start to realize, as you're meditating on how you're feeling, that that's what it is. These are feelings. These are not identities. This is not an inevitability. This is not a way of life or philosophy that I need to follow. It's just feelings. They come and go and they change all the time. So what's the meaning of it if I identify with these feelings all the time? Because then it's like life's a roller coaster if I'm going up and down, up and down. But if I know these feelings change and they're malleable based on what's happening in my environment, why am I identifying with every single one? So this is a very interesting process that happens when you meditate, and this is what links into developing empathy, where you can understand that despite how I'm feeling, if I'm feeling betrayed or stressed or angry, I don't have to identify with it, and therefore I don't have to allow the emotion to carry me through these cycles. So empathy is a real superpower when it comes not only to letting go and forgiving and not holding on to resentment, but actually fostering and forging strong, deep connections with other people. And when you start to show empathy to others, your relationships will transform. The next one is explore. To develop a childlike curiosity for all avenues of life. Now you can apply this, let's say, to work. Let's say you're at work and you've been working on a problem, or on a project that's had a lot of problems that come with it. Now, you and your team have been kind of butting heads, trying to solve the problem. One person says something, one other person disagrees. No one's really working together. Okay. And as a result, because of the tension and because of the stress, people are starting to be judgmental. People are saying, that's a stupid idea. We've already tried this. We've already discussed this. It doesn't work. Look what happens in this project. It just doesn't fit. So you can see how that kind of situation can be particularly stressful, and it can limit your ability to see what all the options are, what is really on the table, particularly if there's judgment being floated around. So with Explore, it's about having a childlike curiosity. And when I say childlike curiosity, children are quite imaginative and they like to kind of play out different scenarios, and for them, usually no option is off the table. They'll probably suggest things that are quite bizarre or adults don't really think about, because for them, there's no judgment. There's no concept of, if I say this, it's going to be stupid. I'm just going to say it because this is what I'm imagining, this is what I'm thinking. And as a result, they can come up with pretty innovative ideas. And it's about developing that and continuing that as an adult, where you're able to think outside the box continually and have no option off the table and have no judgment for these options. So by having that kind of explore mindset where you're curious about what the options are, let's say at work, for example, you'll be able to really tap into your creativity, because you are not setting yourself a limit. You're not saying that, there's no fear of being judged. There's no fear that this is a stupid idea, because there could be an idea that has some merit or could apply in a particular situation, but you're exploring all options. So with Explore, it's about, again, not being judgmental, not having that kind of voice that's saying this is a dumb idea or don't go there or you're going to look like an idiot. It's just simply, with a childlike mentality, just coming up with ideas. And you'll be amazed if you take 10 minutes, if there's a particular project you're working on, let's say, and you've been stuck on it for a while. Maybe it's out of fear, maybe it's just the fact that you're so stressed about it you don't know how to think. Take 10 minutes after you kind of do a meditation, make sure you're calm and relaxed, and take 10 minutes to write out ideas, no matter what those ideas are. And after 10 minutes, you'll be surprised how many ideas you come up with and how many of those ideas might provide the solution you're after, or might even address it, and you can take it from there. So with having an explore mindset, is about being curious. Because you may not think you're curious enough, you may not think you're creative enough, you may not even think you think outside the box. Trust me, you have that ability, because by tapping into the explore mindset, you are using different neural pathways. Maybe it's always been the case that you've come up with ideas in the past and you've always been shut down, or people have joked about it, or you've always been ridiculed. On a subconscious level, you remember this, and therefore it limits you kind of going any deeper for next time because you're afraid of receiving that ridicule. But by letting that go, you are opening up the floodgates for any ideas that you can generate using the explore mindset. So it's about using different neural pathways, using different parts of the brain, and being fearless by exploring and coming up with options, whether it's at work, whether it's a conflict in a relationship, whether you're dealing with something in terms of how you feel. No option is off the table. So this is what explore can offer you. The next one is innovate. It's about breaking free from the way that you've thought and approached problems in the past and thinking of new, novel, interesting and innovative ways to solve those problems. So it might be that you've had a particularly rigid way of approaching a problem. Maybe you looked at things through a purely logical lens. Maybe you felt that there's a certain right way to do things. So it's about breaking free from that and thinking nothing's off the table. Can I solve this problem using purely emotion? Is that even possible? Let me try to figure out how that's possible and see if there's any innovative ways that we can, and different angles that we can approach this problem. Maybe I need to bring on someone else who has a completely different background than I do to see what they think of it. So it's about being innovative, thinking outside the box, and really harnessing your creativity into this. And an interesting exercise in terms of how you can develop that innovate mindset is to say yes and. So it might be that someone comes with a kind of proposal for how they could solve a problem, and instead of saying no but, or any of those things where you shut the idea down, just say okay, yes and. So maybe you can add something to that, add something to the idea that they proposed, and then they return. So by then you're going to end up going down a pathway that you will have never ever explored or experienced if you had said no. This is the point of innovation. And the point is not to get to a solution. It's about thinking about outside the box, coming up with something different, being creative. And that's going to help set you apart. It's going to help set you apart in business. And it's also going to help elevate you in your relationships, because you are coming and approaching the problem from a completely different perspective. And that's what's interesting about it. And that's also going to help encourage people around you to do the same, because they feel, look, this guy's coming with a completely different approach. You know what? I feel a bit more confident to come with my ideas. Now you're starting to generate ideas, and this is what it's all about. This is what's so interesting about it. So instead of being rigid, it's encouraging you to be flexible and really tap into your creativity. The next one is navigate. Now this is where you tap into your internal compass to help guide you through different life decisions. Often in our life, we have different pathways that we can take. There are different options available to us, and each decision we make is going to take us down a particular road. And there are some cases where when we make a decision, there's no turning back. So we sometimes really need to be really careful and mindful about what decision we make, because it could have drastic consequences for our lives. With Navigate, you are essentially looking at what are my deepest held important values that I have for my life, and how can I apply those values in terms of my decision making. Because the fact is, now I'm in a kind of crossroads in my life. Which path do I take? And an exercise you can do is to flash forward. Imagine where you want to be, and you backwards engineer what were the steps you needed to have taken in order to get to that point. So this again encourages you to stop where you are and really reflect where you are and where you want to be, and kind of figure out what were the choices you need to make in order to get there. Even if those choices seem at the time to be difficult or even impossible, it's about embracing it and being open-minded enough to realize that those thoughts and those options are available to you and that they are possible because of where you want to get to. So this is where your sense of navigation is really important, because you need to apply what you really feel and what you really value in your life and apply it to the decisions you make about navigating. So if you are a pleaser, if you have that pleaser saboteur where you want to please others, if you're a hyperachiever, these things can deviate you away from your true internal purpose, and therefore will intercept and interfere with your ability to navigate effectively. Because you'll be navigating based on what other people want, or what you think other people want from you, rather than what you want. So already you're going down a different pathway. So the whole point of Navigate is, first and foremost, you understand what's important to you. What does your internal compass look like? What does it feel like? And how does that align to the decisions that you want to make? The final area is Activate. Activate is when you take action with pure clarity, focus, and determination. Nothing gets in the way of you taking action. No procrastination, no perfectionism, no resentment or ill feeling, nothing. You are purely focused on what you want to do. And if you look at the really high achievers in terms of those in business, that's the ability they have. Even if they work 4 hours a day, those 4 hours are pure, uninterrupted work, solid, focused work. It feels like they've worked 12 hours, but only they've worked 4, because they've developed the skill set where they don't procrastinate, they shut themselves off, and they know what they want to do. They have a clear goal, a clear vision, a clear plan, and they stick to it. So it's about developing and fostering that within you, but whatever goal you want to work on. So let's say, for example, you want to forgive someone who's wronged you. Activate allows you to do that with pure clarity and intent and goodwill, without having those feelings of resentment, stress, bitterness holding you back and distracting you from that. You can purely engage in the action by forgiving them and letting go, without having any negative saboteurs or feelings weighing you down or holding you back. That way, it allows you to be completely intentional in your action. And this is a key part of being in the moment, experiencing a joyful life, giving something your fullest attention. So if you are restless, if you have that restless saboteur where you're always thinking about the next thing, this takes you out of your mind. You are activated. You are clear about what you want to do. You're not thinking about the next thing. The next thing comes when the next thing comes. For now, this is what you're doing and this is what you're focused on. So Activate is a real superpower because it links to action with clarity and intent. And if you imagine the decisions you make on a daily basis or weekly basis, how many of those decisions that you make are really purely based upon 100% clarity and intent? Whereas what are the decisions you make that kind of like half-guessed, or you're kind of thinking about something else, you're trying to do something quickly? Activate is about being completely mindful of what you're doing and you know why you're making that decision. So these sage areas require the use of different parts of our brain compared to what I spoke about in the part 1 of this video, which is the survive parts of our brain, the kind of deeper recesses of our brain linked to emotion, linked to the survival aspects. This is about using the more modernly developed parts of our brain, like the prefrontal cortex, where it links with consciousness, where we are consciously aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and the way we relate to others, relate at work, kind of doing our projects, personally growing. It's all about being conscious, because when you are conscious, you are aware of your saboteurs. You're aware of the things that are getting in your way. You are aware of how they impact your thoughts, how they impact the way you feel, and how they impact your behaviors. You are aware of why you feel that way. And because you have this self-awareness, you can start to detach any sense of identity you've had to these areas. You can detach from that because you know that these things were conditional. You weren't born with them. They were conditioned over time based on your experiences and what you were taught and what you've seen. There's so many factors that go into this. And because now you've detached from that, you no longer identify with it. You can then, that frees you up to choose what you want to do, how you want to act, what you want to achieve. And you can start operating from a completely different mindset. Rather than just getting by through the midst of stress and anxiety, through the midst of fear of taking risks, getting it wrong, being judged, rather than going through those motions, you can then choose over time with practice and consistency to develop these areas that I've spoken about in this video in order to make clear, conscious decisions that align with your truest principles, your goals that you want to achieve, and you can be mindful and enjoy doing it. And when I say enjoy doing it, I'm not saying you're going to be happy all the time. You're still going to feel anxious, fearful, have the fear of judgment, perhaps be critical. You're still going to experience these things, but they are no longer going to affect you in the same way because you no longer identify with them. And because you developed skills such as empathy and compassion and being able to activate and navigate, because of these areas, the impact that these negative aspects have will be much, much less. This frees you up to therefore experience a more grateful, joyful experience of life with clarity and a clear vision for what you want to achieve. And once you start living from that space, the possibilities are truly endless. Comment below on which of those 5 areas most resonate with you or most interest you. I would love to hear about it. For me, the Innovate one is particularly interesting because it requires you to be creative and think outside the box, something that I never thought I was capable of doing. However, I've learned that I am, and it is a skill, it's a practice. You have to continually practice it. Please like and subscribe. There'll be more content coming out soon.